I'm really into this notion of music being your friend for life and how, certain songs represent a particular point in your life, whether that's good or bad. For me, there's one song that really sticks in my mind, which represents quite a sort of dark time in my life. And now when I look back at it, I can see how much I've changed. And, sometimes it's a bit hard to play that song. I've like years and years ago, many years ago, in fact, I've played and sang, other composers' songs in front of people, and I know that if I sang them again now, it'd be like getting into like some sort of time transporter. But the part that I'm kind of missing is writing those songs and how I'd feel if I'd written them and then gone through the massive personal evolution and identity shifts that I have, over the last sort of few years. And the other thing that I've found about shifting identity is presenting your new self, presenting things that you've not done before, stuff you've not talked about before. And it's interesting how some people will be used to the old version of you and how they react to the new version of you, or perhaps I should read the real version of you. And whether those people, whose reaction to all the things we fear, do they actually care? Do they give a fuck? And how we are perceived, it's all in our mind. I went through all of this, when I started doing this podcast, when I started doing my, kind of writing, started doing some graphic design, so basically I get this anyway, anytime I start anything new. My guest today has written and released music over the last 20 years or so with Mika Miko and Bleached. That's raw, exhilarating, and has that ability to really take you to your own time and place. I find this so powerful. And she's now steadily releasing a bunch of self-recorded, stripped-down, incredibly personal lo-fi songs as Dear Francis, the latest evolution and in a really sort of emotional musical story. So with my tedious inability to keep it brief, it's about time to welcome my guest, Jennifer Clavin. Jennifer, welcome and great to see you.
Thanks.
How are you doing?
Too. I'm doing good. Yeah, it's 11 a.m. here, I
11
think.
a.m., yeah.
11:30. Yeah, I just went on a little hike with my dogs.
Is that your kind of like your morning, kind of get me into the world and all that?
Yeah. Like doing the dog walk is really important for my mental health. Well,
Totally.
also the other thing too, though, sometimes I'm torn between doing the dog walk right away or going and playing like guitar
Mm.
right away. So, but then if I don't, I feel like if I do that, then I kind of like delay the dog walk and I feel really bad. So I try to
Mm.
do coffee, dog walk, and then play
And
music.
then play music. Yeah, it's interesting because I like where we are at the moment in Spain. It's sort of quite hilly. There's a lot of. I mean, it's great for kind of going out and sort of keeping fit. But I really find like when I go out, and if I'm kind of I don't know, like a bit sort of stressed about something or just whatever, just going out and getting out into the air just clears my mind. And I come back, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I've kind of
Yeah,
changed. I notice it.
totally. And then I feel like it also like depends too, like where you're walking, like being in a nice hilly area sounds like that could be really helpful. But
Yeah.
then so I sometimes we'll drive up to like the mountain area because
Mm.
then or like if I just do like a local walk, then sometimes I'm like, do I feel better after this walk or worse? Because it's just like sad seeing all the like just like being in the city and everything that
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I mean that's the same kind of in London, and in London it's like there's a local park, Battersea Park, literally just kind of across the road, and it's just like this kind of oasis, where you can go and it really
oh
just
nice.
go from the just the carnage on the main roads and then just get off and it's just kind of quiet. I do
Yeah,
like it.
see, that's what I love about London is you guys suddenly
Mm,
will have these like gorgeous parks.
yeah.
I'm trying to think though. Oh, the park that sometimes I'll go to when I'm over there is Clissold Park. Is that what it's called?
Thistle Park.
It's like near Stoke Newington. It's like the big park in
Okay.
yeah, and
Right.
it's so pretty. And all the
Yeah.
dogs are off leash and yeah, it's really nice.
It's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so maybe we could start like talking about, Dear Francis.
Okay.
and the and the journey, the kind of the genesis of it, where you were at in your life, and yeah, what you kind of thought process was with it.
Okay, yeah. Well, okay, so I guess like it kind of came out of the where when the pandemic first started
Mm,
because my sister and I were actually writing a record. We were trying to write a new record for Bleached.
mm,
And and then while that was happening, I my roommate at the time had built a little like recording studio for him and I. So I started just going into the recording studio and just like messing around with like solo songs.
mm,
And and I was also, because it was the pandemic, I was taking a Pro Tools class. And so I guess I just like had this room to just kind of explore
yeah,
like just my own songs. And I just liked having the freedom to like write whatever I wanted to write. Like
mm,
I it's funny because I have that freedom with my sister, but I guess I still don't because I'm still in my head about, well, will she like these lyrics? And
yeah,
maybe I'm even thinking about like Bleached fans and like maybe I'm sort of keeping them in mind as well for what I'm writing. And so I guess it's just like a full reset. Felt like I could write about anything I wanted to write about. And it was like just more personal and deeper
mm,
lyrics. And so then and then I was also traveling. I guess I started traveling a lot. Yeah, because it was the pandemic. So
mm,
like doing a road trip, so I'd always bring an acoustic guitar. And so I think I started just suddenly having these collection of acoustic songs. But then, so this has been a project kind of it like that's been happening for years, but I've
mm,
only now just started putting the songs out because I've been
right,
so terrified to like
really,
yeah, show this side of my musical journey.
mm,
Yeah, and it's like I think sometimes in my mind I think I feel like the world has already seen like the 20 demos I have in my computer, but I have to keep reminding myself like Jennifer, you've only put out three songs,
three
and one of
songs.
them I felt like wasn't even a song. I felt like it was like a demo. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one, isn't it? What what I was saying in the intro about, I guess, sort of first of all, sort of showing that kind of other side, or a different side, to you've always, yeah, I guess, got an eye on other people, and I can totally understand why you would have it with, kind of bleached fans. What do people expect? This is something different. I can totally
Yeah.
get that. Totally appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and I guess like too, it was like it's like um just like evolving as a person, which I feel like you were saying in the intro too, like
Yeah.
that version of me that has been, immersed in the bleached world.
Mm,
Suddenly I felt like I was like growing out of that and becoming more, of just like growing, getting just older and
yeah.
feeling like change and just changing and wanting to like try, I guess, I don't know, just like I feel like the pandemic like helped me
Mm.
get in touch with my like introverted side that I don't
Yeah. I mean, I was like, when I was a kid. I mean, I was like really shy. I mean, I'm
me
an
too.
introvert. I am an introvert, and like you learn to live with it. You adapt. And
Mhm.
the shyness in most situations sort of goes, but other situations, I'm still like, okay, I'd rather not be here. I
Yeah,
just want to kind of just disappear and nobody will notice, and things like that. It's a weird kind of thing, for
yeah,
me, for somebody of my age, that you still kind of feel that. But um, I think that like a lot of people have it. And perhaps I even think like with people who are extroverts, I sometimes wonder if that's like a bit of a kind of cover for
Mhm.
some kind of like uncertainty, or lack of self-belief that kind of exists somewhere.
Yeah, totally. I feel like because I feel like introverts were living in an extrovert world, so I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
very
yeah,
misunderstood until like I started, like I was saying, discovering this introverted side. And I do feel like I was for so many years putting on this extroverted like personality to like survive in the real world.
yeah.
So
Was
it
that
is like really hard, like
was it
being an introvert.
was that sort of particular? I mean, do you think that kind of putting on that sort of persona was to kind of survive in both the music world and outside of that?
Yeah, I feel like, well, okay, because I feel like I think like when Mika Miko first started,
Mm,
I I was such an introvert, but I had my group of friends, like we were always together 24/7. So like I felt comfortable in their presence, like with all the Mika Miko girls, and
yeah.
sometimes we'd have one boy drummer, depending on who was drumming at the time. And I felt, and I remember we'd like one time we went on tour with we were opening up for The Gossip and Erasarada.
Mm,
And they were all like, Jennifer's so quiet. Like, why is she so quiet? But then they were surprised because then I'd get on stage and I would just like be so crazy and wild.
yeah.
So I guess I just felt comfortable like all of a sudden tapping into this like this other, like going to a different place when I'd all of a
Mm,
sudden perform,
mm,
which was exciting. But then I think like this, then I think started to get, this is why I got into drinking, and then it got too far and now I'm like 8 years sober,
mm.
is because I think the alcohol helped me feel like comfortable finally.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. Yeah.
yeah, like coming out of my introverted shell, like, and now suddenly I could be this extrovert and feel like just like, oh, this is who I am. This is the real
Yeah.
me. It's this like
Yeah.
drunk version. And and then it's like, and then but then I feel like once you get sober, you're constantly, if you do like I did AA, so you're constantly around like sober community, and then that helps you like feel comfortable, like because you're, I was like so
Totally.
uncomfortable when I first got sober, but then I'm around all these other people that are totally uncomfortable too. So you start
Mm,
to feel like, oh, this is normal feeling this, feeling this way. And then I think it was like more late in the last few years, I started realizing finally, like, oh, okay, this is also like just being an introvert as well.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's totally okay. So,
Yeah. I remember I quit drinking. When was it? It was the end of 2019. So
oh, nice.
coming up for 5 years.
Oh, cool.
And it was,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. And it was, yeah, I mean, it's a just such a change that you have to make to so many parts of your life.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, your life kind of like on the road is sort of very, very different. I found that, for me, I still do not as many now, but I used to go to a lot of gigs. I used to go to a lot. As you can imagine, like in London, it's just like, okay, my God, what am I going to go to?
Yeah.
And that meant like a whole change in how I kind of approached that. I used to, I would go, when I was drinking, I would go out at maybe, I don't know, like 3, 4 o'clock or something like that. And then that was like game over. And now, like, I remember the first one that I went to after I quit. So I quit just before the pandemic, about 3 months before it,
Okay. Oh, wow.
which was a good thing, and
Yeah.
which was a really, really good thing. But the first gig that I went to was maybe, I think the UK sort of opened up maybe 7 months, or maybe around July, sort of July to September or something like that. Or maybe I've got that wrong. But oh no, that was in 2021, I think. But anyway, the first one that I went to, I was like, okay, what do I do? It's really
Yeah.
weird. I've never done this before, ever. Like, what the fuck do I do? And
Just
and it's
like
been
drink a lot of soda water.
a lot of soda water and just sort of like hope that nobody notices and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, there's a lot of people like the same now. But for me, I felt it just felt like like a real sort of fish out of water. But
Totally.
But I remember, like what you were talking about the sort of the personas, and I remember reading this interview with Karen O, and
Yeah.
she was saying, like, back in, kind of 2003, it was in it was in this was in one of the UK papers. And have you got company?
Yeah, I don't know why the dog is acting like a cat as if he's like, Benny Bear, stop. He's like
But
scratching a carpet.
oh my.
Okay.
But no, she was saying that yeah, when so on stage, very sort of flamboyant, costumes and very
Yeah.
flamboyant performance. I got off stage and I'm like socially awkward, don't want to be around anybody, people just can't believe it. But that's like, but I think for her as well, the kind of the drinking, helped with that kind of flamboyance as
Okay.
well.
Oh, cool. I didn't really know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
no,
So
it's
interesting.
it is interesting, like how those sort of personas work, and I mean,
Totally.
how do you feel like since you quit? How do you feel? Has it been a process of kind of getting used to who you are when you're performing live?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I feel like,
dramatic.
um, yeah, like, well, okay. I was thinking about one thing when you were talking about being in the bar and hoping that no one notices. I was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
thinking about that, and I was thinking how, like one thing I really like is I do like being around other people that are drinking because I
Mm,
feel like when they're drinking, they don't notice like if
yes,
I'm being awkward.
it's true.
So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like
yeah,
I'm suddenly like getting a drunk by association or something, just like
yeah.
what their filter through their drunk filtered brain, everything's fine.
Everything's fine. But no, I mean, I kind of know. I mean, one thing that I noticed for myself was I learned to. I felt like I trusted myself more, like my own kind of judgment, which was a big thing for me at that sort of time. Especially
Yeah.
in kind of like pandemic COVID times, it was like, okay, am I seeing things realistically here, or are things distorted? Because it's such an extreme kind of situation that we're in. I don't know.
Yeah, and
So for me,
I heard a lot of people went really hard that a lot of people that ended up quitting drinking after the pandemic because they went so hard in the pandemic. Like
yeah,
suddenly it's like, yeah, so many reasons to just keep drinking.
yeah. I know I've got
So
to kind of get
it's
back
probably
to life.
yeah, so good that you quit before
Yeah.
getting there. Um, but yeah, so wait, sorry, can you ask that question again a little?
It's basically around Dear Francis. So I think you'd said that the idea of it had been there for some time, and then you kind of like getting into actually releasing the songs, and it's like, okay, this is something completely different to what I've done before, and how it's going to be
Yeah.
received by the public.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's still it's actually like terrifying. Like even
Mm.
like doing this interview right now is like kind of scary because I just get so nervous. Like every time I put a song out so far now with this new project, I guess it's just this crazy thing of not having my sister with me to like maybe bounce the energy off of, Like
Yeah,
now
yeah,
it's like I'm fully responsible for this thing I'm putting out. Um and before I feel like if like no one really, like it wasn't fully 100% coming from me. It's coming from me and my sister. So if you don't like something about this song,
yeah.
well, you don't really know like what part each of us,
Yeah,
are
it's like
responsible for. So yeah. So
it's
I
like it's
guess
like there's somebody else to share the load if something
yeah,
goes wrong, isn't it?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's like, and then me and my sister have been like so close, like our
Mm.
whole lives. Like we're still really close. And she ended up doing the music video for the last song.
Yes,
So,
yes, which is excellent, by the way.
oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun, like collaborating already together because she really wants to get into film. Like she's always
Mm.
dabbled in film. So, but yeah, it's just like, I think the thing that's the hardest so far is just like the alone part of it
Yeah.
because yeah, I guess that's what I was saying is me and my sister have been close our whole lives. So then like I'm the older sister, so like so now I feel like maybe I'm like alone for the first time
Mm.
in all of this and it's like yeah, it's I'm finding it really scary, which is probably why it's taken me so long just to start putting songs up.
Do you know
And
when? No, sorry, carry on. Yeah, carry
oh
on.
yeah, I was also gonna say like I guess the other part that's really hard is am somewhat of a perfectionist when it comes to work. So I guess when it comes to life as well, but definitely in my work and what I'm gonna like show the world
Sure. Yeah.
and I guess that's hard too because I don't have that other person to tell me when to stop. Like when you're a perfectionist, you can just keep
Keep
going and
going.
finding. And it's like when you're in a partnership, I feel like someone's like, okay, this is good. Like this,
Yeah.
we're done. Let's move on. So
Do
I guess
you,
that's really hard too.
I mean, there's a few interesting things there, Jen. I mean, the like the perfectionist side. I mean, like where if you let's say you kind of like you've written a song and you're kind of like rehearsing and you record. How does that perfectionism sort of manifest itself?
Okay, so I feel like when I know something's right and it doesn't need any more work, I just know.
It's
Like
just
whether it's
instinctive.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like writing a song, it's like this this is this is right. This is exactly what the chorus, the verse, this is the from the front to the end of the song. Everything's right here. And then um and that's great when that happens, because then you can just kind of like put it away and
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
wait, that's done. And then there's other things where it's like, oh God, I feel like this melody could change. I feel like this melody isn't good enough. And I'll get back to it and then start working on another song and then revisit it and it still just doesn't feel right. Or like the lyrics, I'm like, I'll start with like just lyrics that kind of come to my mind as I'm writing.
Mm.
And then but then I'll decide like, well, those lyrics aren't good enough. So now I need to like alter them and make them good lyrics. But then it's like, it's just continuously like if
Mm.
I don't have that feeling of this is right, then I'll just keep altering it, which I think
Yeah.
that's where perfectionism comes in because it's like, well, you're not going to get that feeling with every single thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's like sometimes I'm looking for that all the time. And but it's funny, my last therapy session, I felt like something really stuck with me with about holding two things at once. So I think there's like the holding the perfectionist and then also holding the version of me that's like, it's fine that this isn't
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And so just knowing like, okay, it's time to like move on now.
I have these uh similar kind of like sort of competing things. So I have like a tendency to kind of like analyze things and to look at different, if I look at one option, then I'll be thinking, okay, well, if I do that, what's the implication of that, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. And then I have the other side of me, which is what you're saying about kind of instinct, when you just sort of know that something feels right. And then
Mhm.
sometimes I feel that kind of tension, that okay, well, I want to analyze things, but then my gut is telling me that this one's okay, go that route, and it's kind of fine. And it used to drive me fucking insane that I'll be like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I've got a lot better with it now, and I rely much more on my kind of instinct, what my instinct is telling me. And I found honestly, like the instinct is usually right
Yeah,
if you can get there, if you can get over that little
totally.
kind of hurt, and not little, it's sometimes a big hurdle.
Yeah, I know, and that's where I feel like sometimes instinct is sometimes maybe even like the first lyrics that come to mind
Yeah,
that really just flow with the song versus the overthinking of like, oh, now I need to change all this. And it's like,
yeah,
yeah, sometimes it's really hard to figure out. Sometimes I guess it's hard to know like when to go with Yeah, which one is louder,
Is louder.
or the my thoughts?
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right with that.
But yeah,
Because
it does feel so good when you tap into the instinct part and you're just like,
yeah,
this is it.
I did a few actually during the pandemic. I did it was like an online it's like an online sort of it's like a 2 hour workshop or something like that with a Laura Odell who was married to she was in psychic TV. She was married to Genesis PRH.
Oh, cool. Oh, okay,
Uh,
yeah.
she's amazing. She did basically this workshop around stream of consciousness writing, and
Oh,
I don't know if you've ever done that. It was the first time that I'd done it, and basically you kind of like get a couple of prompts of thing, and then you just go with and just write, and the only rule is just don't stop writing. If you kind of
cool.
like try if you do come across a block, just sort of write the previous word until the block goes, and the idea is
Oh,
just to sort of like try and lift out whatever your kind of deep thoughts are.
oh, cool. And how long do you do it for?
You can, I mean, each one, we did each one for maybe 20 minutes.
Oh, so you would write for 20 minutes straight?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Which is quite intense. And then, when you sort of come out of it and you're reading what it's like, okay, right,
Yeah.
what's going on there? It is kind of like a
Yeah.
bit like a sort of deep therapy session or something. But
Yeah.
it's interesting, like if trying to take that and say, okay, this is I guess this is who I am at this sort of moment. This is what's influencing me,
Yeah, totally.
which is
Yeah.
could be a bit of a sort of scary place sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. And again, what you were saying about sort of putting stuff out there. I mean, I sort of had that with like when I started this podcast. I was like, oh my god, no, I'm not doing this. And it was my partner actually that she sort of pushed me into it.
Oh, cool.
And
That's
it's
nice.
like you gotta do this, and
Yeah.
that's you know it like you at the moment it's you. It's almost like this is kind of me, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh my
totally.
god, this is like something completely different for me.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah. And
worried
then
about
it's
what
like
people
I think
think.
and I feel like the best things are the scariest things. So it's
Mm,
like you do have to I feel like when something really matters and is really important, like it is gonna be scary
yes,
to start.
I mean honestly, I mean I enjoy. I've been doing this for what 3 years, over 3.5 years probably now, and I love it. I
Cool.
love like everyone. It's
Nice.
just so much fun, and I'm so glad I did it. But I had to really get out of my comfort zone to do it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
You're totally
So
right that that's where the best things are when you do that. But it can be a bit of a scary place to start with.
yeah, 'cause it's really easy to just stay in like the safe zone. But
Yeah.
then if you do that, I feel like I'm always thinking, well, what if? What if? Like,
Mm,
and it was so much easier doing all this when you're younger. Like I had
yes.
like way less fear in a way.
Yeah.
But
It's
now,
right.
yeah, yeah.
I think you're totally right. I'm glad you mentioned that because the thing I often think about going back to when we were kids. Like really like 2 year old, 1 year old, 2 year old, 2 years old. You you're so curious, and there are no inhibitions. And you don't
Yeah.
worry about these sort of things because you've not kind of got into society and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of gets kicked out of you a little bit. Then all the kind of social stuff comes around you, and you start to worry about things. But that's the purest time, almost, isn't it? When you're that age.
Totally. It's funny because we actually just rescued a kitten the last couple of days. Like the trail that I was saying we go walk our dogs on.
Yeah.
My partner was up doing a night hike,
Mm,
and when he came back down with his friends, there was a little kitten
yeah.
like under one of their cars. So we like brought it home and we ended up just giving the cat to the adoption to be adopted because they have a really
Mm,
good kitten program there. But it was like similar thing where it's like this kitten is fearless.
yeah.
And I'm like, But I also know how cats eventually get. I feel like they're super introverted. So I was like watching this little kitten be like so like no, not scared of the dogs and just like so curious to explore and see all these things. But then I kept thinking about its future self and how it'll be like
Yeah.
just probably like hiding.
Just kind of
And
grumpy and just like,
yeah,
just leave me alone.
yeah.
I'm kind of good.
So yeah, and it's like, yeah, I guess seeing that side of a kitten was nice to remind me of my own inner kitten.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean,
that's like,
while we're on this, I mean, go back to when you were a kid and sort of growing up. You know, what were the, you know, what were the kind of like formative influences for you? You know, I mean, you know, any kind of like events that you remember that started to shape who you are.
yeah. God, I feel like there's so many.
Mm,
Like, I mean, I also had really bad anxiety as a kid.
mm.
Like my my mom put me in like this daycare and my anxiety was so bad I would throw up every day.
Oh
I was
wow.
like and they finally kicked me out. And then my mom sent me to my friend's it was preschool, yeah.
Mm,
And there that was very like art centered and I loved it there.
right.
So like I guess my mom and I were just talking about that story, so that's why I remembered it.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking like, oh, I guess I was just like always that kind of says a lot. Like I just being around art and learning in that way was more comfortable than whatever the other school was doing.
Mm,
And um yeah, and then we grew up in like West LA. So yeah, there was a lot of like I I feel like also growing up at that time there was a lot of like traumatic events that
mm,
I've taken with me thinking like that was so scary that I feel like are still with me.
mm,
Like like um uh I mean there was like the big the Northridge earthquake
yeah.
and then there was like I just would like growing up around the AIDS pandemic, like my
Mm,
uncle died of AIDS. That was really crazy to see as a little girl, like
I bet.
just yeah. And then my parents were also really obsessed with like celebrity deaths. So we would go on like a lot of like they'd be like, "Do you guys want to go see like the Nicole Simpson murder scene?" And like they took
Wow.
us there like the day after, and I remember seeing like the
Wow.
tape around the house
Oh
and
my.
like the yellow tape. Or like now that there's that Menendez Brothers show,
Mm,
I'm always telling people like, "Oh, my parents used to drive me by that house when I was a kid
yeah.
because it was right down the street from my school at the time."
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then we like And then we moved to the valley, and that's where I feel like I like really found my like crew. Wait, I'm gonna close
Mm.
this door really
Sure,
quick.
sure, sure. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's where I found like all my like Mika Miko friends
Mm,
and like discovered punk music.
mm,
I felt like I finally found like where I belong, like when I discovered punk music.
mm.
And then met so many friends through
Why do
that.
why do you think it was that you kind of felt attracted towards that scene?
I don't it's like it's funny because when I first went to the school and I remember my mom was trying to get me in with like the cheerleaders
Mm,
and I was like so uncomfortable and
yeah.
and then and then I met my friend Jenna, who was the other singer of Mika Miko, and
Yeah.
it was just like this immediate like bond. We have the same birthday, and we lived a block away from each other. It was like this magical, I feel like, connection. And
Mm,
together, me and her and my sister, all like I feel like we just suddenly, I don't even know how oh, there was this one girl, she was like this, she was an older girl, and she would like drive us to shows. So maybe like she not like older, she was like a grade older than us. And
Mm,
she
mm.
really liked Bratmobile and
Yeah.
yeah, just like riot girl. She was like a little riot girl, and she would like, yeah, take us to like the local punk shows. And I
Mm,
guess there was just some sort of like freedom that suddenly came with like that lifestyle of like
yeah.
people dressing like, in an alternative way and kind of just being like, fuck you. You're a
Yeah.
teenager and you're like,
Totally.
fuck, what is this? What is this world we're living in? And yeah. And then I just like also really liked like movies that were like really punk. Like, did you ever see any of the Penelope Spheris movies? Like
No.
um Suburbia, or
Well, for
there
one thing, I'm terrible at remembering movie names, so I
oh
may well have seen
okay.
it, but it doesn't ring a bell.
There was like, well, it's basically these like punk kids that are just like living in LA, and there's actually a lot of like really iconic musicians in the movie, like
Mm,
Flea is in the movie.
right.
And like I think a lot of like I think Darby from The Germs
The
maybe makes
germs.
an appearance or something.
Yeah.
And then she also did this documentary called Decline of Western
Oh
Civilization,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
those are amazing. Yeah, and
I
she
remember
does
that. I
like,
remember that.
yeah, and those are also about like the like 80s punk scene. And then I think the next one was about the like more LA metal scene, but yeah, she was just like, I don't know, just like really connected with with
Yeah. I mean,
these, yeah, movies.
I was kind of this. I was sort of similar in the sort of music and culture that that I like, that kind of attracted me. Very sort of similar to that, and in a way, I was sort of more attracted to the US scene than the UK. So no, I did like the UK scene more, of the the original sort of punk scene, but also then the post punk, the kind of Susie and the Banshees and the Killing Jokes
Yeah.
and sort of bands like that. But then yeah, but I've tried to work out why it was that I went to that, because my parents were not into that at all,
Yeah,
and
same.
that's one of my kind of like abiding memories of playing stuff in on my kind of stereo system, and like my dad just like not understanding. In fact, I remember one time watching it was the video for Psychotherapy, the Ramones,
Oh
and
yeah.
and it was on TV, and I remember it was on, and my dad just sort of looking around his paper at the TV and just like shaking his head, and I was like, oh my.
I guess like that's the thing too, is like it's like I didn't want to be like my parents at all. So any disapproval from them was kind of approval. Like
Yeah, right. I kind of like because I'm an only child, and I never felt, I guess because of my sort of shy nature as well, I always felt very like I was in the spotlight, and kind of like I was really uncomfortable with that,
yeah.
and I just like, so any kind of tension that existed, it used to send me into a tailspin. I used to hate it,
Yeah, I
Oh,
totally
God.
relate. It's funny though, when you said you were more into the American scene, that reminded me that I was so obsessed with the British, a lot of British punk bands. Like the
Yeah.
Slits was
Oh
my
yeah. Yeah.
favorite band growing up. I was so obsessed. And then X-Ray Specs, and then when I discovered this video, I don't even know how I found this video. It was like before YouTube was a thing. So you had to
Mm.
like find videos by passing them around
Yeah.
or going to
Yeah.
the local music store and buying one that had been copied onto a tape. And there
Yeah.
was this one video called Girls at Our Best, and it had Susie and the
Ah.
Banshees on it. And
Yeah.
I was just like, this is everything to me. Like, I want to be that. Like,
Incredible.
yeah. So that was really inspirational, was seeing Susie and the Banshees for the
Yeah.
first.
There was
Oh,
I always sort of, sorry, I've got.
oh, well, I was just thinking too, in the video, I think what stuck out to me, and I'm just realizing this now too, is like after they do this amazing performance and they're so confident on stage and they're killing it, they then do this like little side interview and they're all like so shy and
Oh, yeah.
timid. And it's like I feel like that's what we've been talking about. Like,
It is totally, totally right. Yeah, you sort of. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, thinking about those. I mean, so many interviews when you think about it. and the musicians look like really. I mean, some of it in part is the kind of the interviewer and the questions that they get asked.
Yeah.
It's like some nonsense, but yeah, kind of like shyness does come through for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of wacky, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's cool, right? It's
I
like
get,
cool.
yeah, it is totally, yeah. I mean, I think, and I also, I mean, thinking about what you're saying about perfectionism as well. One thing I really like seeing that kind of shyness, because I can definitely relate to. I'm sure you
Mm.
can as well. But also the when if a band's playing live, or even kind of like on record, when you can hear those things that maybe go wrong, like a kind of there's an off chord or there's a sort of slightly off drum beat or whatever. those
Yeah.
those kind of imperfections, I love those. I
Yeah.
really do, because it shows that that the people,
Yeah, totally.
you make people, everybody makes mistakes. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that too. I know, and in that it's like when does imperfection ruin something like that? I mean, when does being a perfectionist take something like that,
Yeah.
like a special moment like that away? But I feel like going back to the perfectionism thing, yeah, it is like it's like not perfectionism, I think, in the way that people think perfectionism means, where
Mm,
this thing has to be perfect looking
like
to where
precise.
yeah, it's more
Yeah.
like perfectionism, like it has to be perfect for
For
me.
you. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
that could be a lo-fi recording, but it still
yeah.
yeah, it has to hit whatever my perfectionism button is.
Which I guess can kind of change as well, depending on the
Exactly. Oh my God, totally.
stage of your life,
Yeah.
the themes that you're writing about, whatever.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too, is like I look back on so many things I did and I'm like, at the time that was everything to me and I thought it was the best thing I'd ever done. And
Mm.
now it's like I don't even care to like really I feel like you outgrow yourself, I guess.
Mm. I was going to say, actually, when you look back at your back catalogue, through Bleach, Mac and Michael, how do you feel?
If I think like the pandemic has put a real like wall between like there's like pre-pandemic life and post-pandemic life. And I feel like
Mm.
for me, the pandemic really like resembles where I feel like that chapter came to a real end and a new chapter began.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like weird looking back sometimes because I'm like, I feel like it was like, yeah, sometimes I just feel like it's like a different version of myself
Mm.
that that I like, yeah, it just feels like sometimes I'm like looking back on a different version. Like it's like I don't recognize
Mm.
myself sometimes. But then with Mika Miko, we just did those reunion shows, and that was really nice because I was really freaked out going into those, being like, I am nothing like the teenage version of myself. And then it was like we did them, and I'm like, I'm starting to have this realization like, wait, I think we are the same as our teenage selves. Like,
Mm.
I think I always had this idea like we're teenagers and then we grow out of that completely and we become adults one day. And I'm like, actually, I feel like we're always every every stage of us is always with it continues to be with us to where we
Mm.
are now. And then this version of me and all my past selves will continue to like
Yeah.
be with me. And I like that better because I think it's a little bit sad. Like sometimes it feels a little sad just thinking like, oh, I'm not connected to that old
Yeah.
version
Because
of myself.
again, at each everything that happens, everything that you do, whether it's a kind of piece of music, or it's a drawing or a piece of writing that you did, it's you at that point in time, isn't it? That
Totally.
it's like, okay, that's who I was. and
Yeah.
and you can almost like sort of see possibly sort of see the changes in yourself, when both in whether it's in kind of ability, but also as who you are as a sort of person. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's what was representative of me at that in kind of 2012.
Yeah, totally. I guess maybe that also goes into perfectionism, like just
Mm,
having to accept past versions of ourselves and that they mattered at that time.
yeah. I know, yeah. I mean, sometimes kind of like remembering or looking back at some stuff, and you think, "Oh, what was I thinking when I did
Oh my God,
that?"
I know.
But then it's like, okay, that was you just then. That was it. It was totally fine. That's who you
Yeah.
were. Oh my,
Because I even think that now, like maybe I'll look back on what I'm doing now and be like, well, like I don't know. You just never know, I guess.
yeah. So I guess like with Dear Francis, sort of going into the like again sort of being solo, like we sort of saying earlier that it's solely you. What else kind of comes to mind when you think about previously you've collaborated a lot. There's more people to kind of think about in the sort of the band structure, and now it's just you.
Mm.
What else sort of comes to mind on how you kind of feel about doing the solo stuff?
Yeah. Um, I was just thinking something and then it totally
Totally went.
tanked. It was like I guess like oh yeah. Okay, so I feel like whenever when we would record with Bleached, it was like so much production that I felt like a lot of times I would we would do like the early like we'd put the drums down and the bass down and maybe one guitar track and I would think it sounded so good.
Mm,
And then things would get added and all this production would go into it and then it would be this like really polished track. And I felt like I wanted to like I wanted Dear Francis to be like the really raw, like early intimate stages of a song. So that's why,
yeah.
like, with my first song that I put out, Touchdown, I know I even made a big produced version of that song actually.
Mm,
Because when I was exploring with what this project was going to sound like, but
mm,
I'd already had the 4-track demo and I just was like, not confident enough to release it. So I had like a friend help me record it and he's like he's does big stuff
mm,
and I was like I just don't like this is not what I'm trying to do, this is what I'm not trying to do. So
yeah.
then that's when it really confirmed to me like going the 4-track route and what I was just so set on the demo I had already or not demo but the version I had done.
Yeah.
um so that's when that really solidified it for me. Um, and yeah, and so I guess I just want to really make sure I stay true to that. Like, I don't know, there's so many artists out there that really kill it at staying true to themselves. Like, I don't one that comes to the top of my head is Alex G.
Mm,
Like, I feel like his recordings are like always very lo-fi, but it's like you hear the really catchy melodies through it all and
yeah.
so or like even like we grew up playing the small with Ty Siegel. I don't ever
Mm,
know if it's
mm,
Siegel or Siegel, but we grew up playing the smell together, and I feel like he's always stayed really true to his sound. And
mm.
I don't know, Mac DeMarco has, and um,
I always think of, like just on that. I think artists that have sort of stayed true to that. I think Colleen Green stays really sort
oh
of
cool,
true
yeah,
to a sort of lo-fi. I think the last
totally.
album had a bit more production. I think it was Gordon Raphael that produced that, and I
Okay, I
I,
should listen to that.
I love his production work. I think it's just great.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of like how do you want to stay true to your sound, but you also want to like stretch yourself and try new things.
Mm,
So so it's like yeah, it's trying to it's I guess it's like a dance, like trying to figure out like
mm,
where how far to go with it and but then where to stay like with what you want. Yeah, it's like it's just I guess it's experimenting
yeah.
with it well, and then learning from what well and what didn't, and then but just staying true to yourself the whole time, because I think that was what happened with me with Bleach. Is I almost feel like the more people got involved, the less true I was to
Mm,
like the early Bleach stuff. So
yeah. I always
like
feel that like one of the tricky things with anything that gets a kind of following and becomes a thing,
totally,
whether it's a band or whether it's a like a community or anything, it starts to get its own identity, and then I think sometimes there are kind of like assumptions as to what it should be,
totally,
and it's sometimes difficult to break out of that, especially for musicians when you're thinking about like you it's this age old thing about, okay, who are we doing this for? I'm doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the fans, a bit of both.
totally.
I guess those are the kind of tricky things to sort of bear in mind.
Yeah, totally. Because it's like I feel like those things that get big because they're very like unique,
Mm,
and then suddenly like yeah, it's like too many people get involved. And then also maybe I guess with myself I could say like with Bleach, it started so DIY with me and my sister. And then I
yeah.
think I started to lose my own voice because I was like more tapping into what I think everyone else wanted.
Mm,
And but then not to say like I'm still really proud of the things we've done. And it's also fun to like go down that route as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Like have the budgets to do the big productions
Mm,
and
mm,
like record an album at Sunset Sound, like stuff like that is also
yeah.
like so fun. But then yeah, it's like how do you do both those things where you're like,
Yeah.
so I guess it's just important to like, and maybe it's easier. I think a lot of times it's like, okay, the people that you're involving yourself with, you just have to make sure that they also have the same vision, because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
on the other side of music, like not musicians, but people that work in music, like they almost like want to take people's art and make it their own or something, like mold it to how they see it. And it's like, so
Yeah.
it's like finding someone that really respects what you're doing and wants to keep it as close to your vision, but just help elevate it is really
Yeah.
hard to find, I think, in the music industry.
I mean, I guess where you've got those other people that are involved that have a fairly big say and or kind of responsibility for or role within the band and what have you. I always think that like their roles are sort of quite important. Like for you being a kind of introvert or anyone being an introvert, making sure that they have the opportunity and the right, kind of environment and space to be able to say, what they really think.
Totally.
You may have a producer that is like a really sort of strong character and has got perhaps a bit overbearing or whatever, and then it's like, okay, do I feel comfortable speaking up? And that, so I think those kind of dynamics between people in a band, or even you as sort of solo, if other people then get involved, it's important for those spaces to be right, though, isn't it?
Totally. And it's like I think that's something I didn't realize till I got older. And
Mm,
maybe that's why like I feel like a lot of times what are duos are really successful when there's like the like I feel like there's like I don't know, Billie Eilish is even an example of that where it's
mm,
like the there's the two people involved, but there's one person that's a little more like maybe helps protect the other person's like very introvert, sensitive
yeah.
side where the art is probably coming from. Because I
Mm,
guess, yeah, it's like I feel like it's like so important to have to be understood
mm,
and for your process to be, I guess, yeah, respected and carefully and taken care of in the
yeah.
right way, and not have like a loud voice come in and be like, we should do this and do that. And
Yeah, I remember like one of my early episodes of this. I had a producer on, and he said, He said, yeah, sometimes I have to kind of like be a psychologist, kind of
Yeah.
like knowing how to get the best out of certain kind of individuals, knowing how they respond to certain ways of doing things or the way that some things are said, all these kind of dynamics. Like, fuck, right? That's really
Yeah,
hard.
totally. Yeah, that's a good person to work with.
Definitely somebody that kind of like understands that.
Yeah, where they are maybe borderline a little bit of a therapist. Yeah.
So with the latest single that you brought out, Godheads, that's obviously sort of like a extremely sort of personal sort of issue or kind of
Yeah.
thing for you about the death of your friend. I mean, that must have brought up a lot of different sort of emotions. I mean, how have you got yourself through that?
Yeah, it's
If that's
been
not too difficult to talk about.
no, yeah, it's okay. It's been really, really challenging. Like right before I actually released the song and the video, I I felt like I was losing my mind. Like I just felt like
Mm.
I almost felt like insane. Like it was just, I think there's just a lot. It was like the nerves of putting out a solo thing, first of all, just like how it's so scary for me every time, but releasing a song
Yeah,
and then just like um feeling like suddenly I was representing my friend that passed away in a way that I never could ask him for permission. Like, are you okay that I'm putting
yeah.
this old footage of us out from being
Mm.
teenagers? Um, but then also really glad that I actually had found that footage at the last minute.
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, I was like my sister, I asked my sister to make the video and then but then we had so she had already made a whole video and then we found the footage and I was like I really want to put this footage in the video, so we totally re-altered the whole thing.
mm.
And yeah, and then but then like here we go again with my perfectionism, literally watching. I must have edited this video like after me and my sister had already done an edit, and my partner helped as well with the edit. I'm still sitting there for days, like way too long,
Wow.
editing things and changing clips out. And I finally like there was a deadline, so I had to stop. But
Yeah.
if there wasn't a deadline, I'd probably still be changing things around. So
I mean,
that's why,
maybe that was, you felt that kind of extra responsibility,
yeah,
to do that for him.
yeah, I feel like that. And then I was also like worried about what other people would also think, like
Mm.
if anyone would be upset. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I sometimes get worried about upsetting other people, like which doesn't that's just my own weird issue of like,
Well, no, I think this is something that's sort of quite common. What you feel, not to play it down in any way, but I think
yeah,
you're not,
no, it's good to
definitely
know that you're
definitely
not
not
alone.
alone. Definitely not alone in that, and
Yeah.
especially for something that for somebody that has clearly been involved in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
that's it's not to put something out that's as um close to so many people, to put that out is not, can't be easy. So
Yeah,
I
and I
think
guess also as well, like it kind of felt like when he passed away, which was about a year ago, like um I felt like no one was addressing the addiction side of it.
yeah,
And I didn't really, and so I felt like now there's been enough time where I could also kind of just say something, uh, like in the video, I say something lightly about addiction and
yeah,
bringing it a little more to light because it's such a sensitive subject. And
absolutely.
yeah, and he was never anyone that wanted to deal with it at all. It was like, this is how I am and this is how I'll be till I die. And I just thought like in my brain, I was like, well, he's so confident about that. Watch, he'll outlive everybody with his addiction. And clearly
Mm.
that doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
So how are you feeling now that that's out there?
Yeah, I feel like It's finally, I've given it to the universe
Given
and
it to
it
the
can do what
universe.
it wants.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, there's like, I want to like still like, some part of me just like almost like didn't even want to post about it anymore. Just be like, here it is. That's it. Move on to
Yeah.
the next song because it was so like so heavy, the whole thing. But I think now that I've had a little bit of time since I put it out Thursday
Mm,
last week, I've had a little bit of time to like decompress from it all and now
mm,
like and then now like positive messages are coming in like, oh my God, this is so cool. I can't stop listening to the song. I like the song so much. So that's just nice like reassurance to hear like,
mm.
okay, this is this is still worth it.
This is worth it. Yeah. Well, I mean, for what it's worth, I think it's a beautiful song, and I think that the video it all together is like put together really, kind of sympathetically, and using. I love that sort of combination of old and new footage. I think
Well, thanks.
it's really kind of sympathetic to the to the memory, and
Oh, nice.
it's a
Thank
tremendous
you.
job. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So what? So one more track to go for this kind of EP, I guess it's an EP, isn't it?
Um, no, okay, so that's been another thing too with doing it, doing the solo adventure is kind of figuring out the release
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
and all that.
yeah.
So it's kind and I guess and also in 2024, it also feels like it like not really knowing your plan feels very 2024 with the way that
Yes,
the music business
it
is
does. Yeah,
like it's like kind of feels like anything goes now. And
yeah.
so yeah, I'm like I have another song to go with it, but I'm also like kind of contemplating if my next plan, like
Yeah.
whether I put out this song this year or if I actually hold off and add it to like an EP for early next year.
Mm, mm. Those are the kind of the fun things to sort of think about. And like you say, I
Yeah.
think I mean I used to get really like obsessive about putting these episodes out every week, and then and I was just like, oh, do you know what? I don't think anybody cares,
Yeah.
and like I can't go on and keep doing this. I've got to have like some breaks, and it's like, oh fuck it, whatever. I'll just I'll try and sort of keep to something resembling a sort of schedule. But if it drops off, it's kind of fine. Nobody really
Totally.
cares, it's no big deal.
Yeah, totally.
It's
Yeah.
totally 24. So anyway, just to sort of finish off, um,
Okay.
for like what does success look like for you
I
in your life?
yeah. Okay, I guess that has definitely changed throughout all the years. So
Mm,
like now I think success for me now, I guess I've also been sitting with what that looks like because it
mm,
has changed so much. Like with Bleached, it was like to just, go on as many tours as possible and, hopefully fill a room every night.
yeah, yeah.
And and then now it's like I feel like success is just like staying true to myself and putting out music that I feel really proud of, whether, no matter how well it does, but knowing that at least one person feels like it's worth it,
Mm,
then it's worth it to me. And not really sure what level that ends up looking like. Like, right. Yeah, I guess right now what's more important is just like the staying true to what I want to be creating and what feels like it's coming from me and not altering things because I think it's what other people want. And then also I really want to have a baby
mm,
and so starting a family as well. And
yeah.
like I don't even know what that looks like, because before like what I was saying with Bleach, like that wasn't in the picture. So I was free to like tour
Yeah.
the world. And now it's like, I guess it goes back to the holding two things at once, like doing music, which isn't always like, isn't like having a baby and a family and doing music, I feel like are very different on
Mm,
different pages. So trying to figure out how to also do those
yeah.
things.
But,
And I guess you know what else actually just to add to that is I would love to eventually just like song to be a songwriter for other people. Like in
mm,
my dream, like 10-year plan, I have like a little studio that I do like songwriting sessions with people in.
wow,
So
amazing.
so
That's
yeah,
beautiful. That's really beautiful, Jen. Thanks so much.
thanks. Thank you.
That's been a really great chat. I can't thank you
Aw.
enough for coming on.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's been really nice chatting too.